In Cage Match, we take two influential leaders of the world and make them go head-to-head, toe-to-toe. In a real cage match series, we see which leaders come out on top when it comes to money, power, and politics to see who will be the last leader standing! How do they match up? Just wait and see! Money. If we bring money to blows, China and the Philippines are hardly up for a fair fight. Taking a look on one side of the ring at China's massive wealth comparatively, their GDP per capita is at a growing $10,500.40 USD. While this is higher than the Philippines in number alone, they stagger a bit due to the massive population size of the country. They're ranked 79th worldwide for their purchasing power parity per capita. China's net worth, however, has soared up to $120 trillion since 2020, making them a growing force in the world. Currently, under Xi's rule, China's sitting at a 1.5% inflation rate and a 2.3% growth rate in the economy. Xi Jinping sits at a personal net worth of $1.2 billion. He's known for flaunting his personal wealth through state cars like the Hongqi sedan, helicopters, and more. While Xi would often be seen in a private jet, he doesn't own one, borrowing it instead when he needs to. Instead of a sprawling estate, Xi lives with Zhangzhai, a former imperial garden in the imperial city. His millionaire relations have revealed elite Chinese fortunes, though great lengths have been taken to make it seem like that's not the case. Punching in behind him, we have Rodrigo Duterte's Philippines, with a GDP of just $3,298.83. The Philippines has the world's 32nd largest economy and the 12th largest in Asia alone. Duterte's personal assets come with a net worth of $550,000, which is staggeringly low next to Jinping's number. They're ranked 63rd in the world for PPP per capita. Currently, the Philippines faces a fast-growing 6.1% inflation rate, and their GDP growth has seen a negative 9.6% decrease. Duterte's been a part of several anti-corruption campaigns through the years, at one point smashing $5.5 million in luxury cars and motorcycles. However, in 2018, he was given cars from Toyota Motors for their 30th anniversary, which included 30 brand new Vios from the company. Despite all the fanfare, he is willing to indulge a bit when it benefits him. Jinping's China has growing affluence, making it one of the world's largest consumers. Their resources generate electricity, irrigation farms, and hydroelectricity, making their significant resources natural and renewable. The Philippines, however, has plenty of natural resources, making it extremely valuable. However, fast economic growth and rapid urbanization threaten their abundance as time passes. China has been using its resources much more for the country's financial gain. While the gap between Duterte and the Philippines is much smaller, the administration's use of the country's resources seems to be a waste to an extent. In terms of wealth and money, it's a tight match between them. While Jinping's wealth is much more massive, his personal holdings and assets are tied to family members and shadowed. And China is growing more and more on the world stage, becoming a more affluent country alongside him. Meanwhile, Duterte's Philippines has a much more modest GDP, and his personal holdings again are in line. It seems like one country hits hard as they focus on bolstering the country. Duterte makes just 2 out of 5 vanilla scoops, allowing Jinping to surge ahead with 4 out of 5, giving him a strong lead right out of the gate. Power. When it comes to political power, we have two very different countries with different ideas and beliefs about running a country. China is currently run by the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and Xi Jinping took office in 2013. Xi, as a politician, took power after a contested childhood, seen first as a son of a politician and looked down upon for nepotism, but grew from that after working in remote villages and trying to join the political party 10 times, was finally accepted in. In the other corner, we have Duterte, who in 2016 came to power as the president of the Philippines. topping the official count with 16,601,997 votes. This put him firmly ahead of his closest rival, Mar Rosas, by more than 6.6 million votes. He worked for the country as a leader because people saw him as someone who could clean up crime and eradicate corruption. As a politician, the former lawyer is backed by the PDP-Laban Party. He became the Philippines' 16th president. Both countries lead strong militaries, though they're far from being evenly matched. China's military is ranked 5th, behind the US, Russia, Britain, and France. According to the state-run news, they have a budget of over $35 trillion, which recently increased to provide the forces with more advanced equipment and better training. They showed a 7.1% increase over previous years to help fund their massive military, reportedly the largest in the world. China currently has 2.8 million soldiers, sailors, and airmen, far surpassing the US's current numbers. The Philippines, on the other hand, is ranked 51 out of 142, with a military budget of $3.73 trillion for 155,000 active military personnel. In 2018, he approved the Armed Forces Modernization Program, which was to be implemented between 2018 and 2022, with a budget of about $5.6 billion US. This was meant to modernize the Air Force with new aircraft and flight motion simulators, the Army with more personnel carriers and fighting equipment and weapons, the Navy and Marine Corps with new frigates and ships, and quite a bit more. China comes in strong, with a massive military and a large budget. The Philippines have come far from where they were, but suffered massive blows pitted against a beast like China. Both leaders over time worked their way up in their respective rights, but Jinping had to work against the odds in anti-nepotism efforts due to his father's position to get to where he is, shedding his princeling title. Jinping earns 4 out of 5 chocolate scoops with his military's heavy fighting power, and Duterte falls back with just 3 out of 5. Oh, that one's gotta hurt. Politics. In 2020, Duterte was the world's most popular leader. His record-high approval rating was 91%. He was famous during crises within the country, fought against the drug crisis in China, and maintained control over his country. However, he faced severe backlash for his human rights violations against systemic racial or racial violence, indigenous peoples, abuses of women, HIV and AIDS social stigma, violence against or criminalization, and other abuses based on gender identity and sexual orientation. This included extrajudicial executions and violations tied to Duterte's war on drugs. Duterte has been voted out, the next president to take office in August of 2022. There's a 6-year term limit, non-renewable, and no president that has served 4 years of a term is allowed to run or serve again. Currently, it's hard to gauge how popular Xi Jinping is or isn't in China because of the lack of transparency or freedoms of speech, thought, and assembly. For Jinping, China has since removed presidential term limits, effectively allowing a president to stay in power indefinitely. There are few options for future scenarios in leadership succession in post-Xi Jinping eras. The changes made in Xi's favor may have destabilized politics and demolished power-sharing norms that had been in place since the 80s. The path forward for these two leaders is pretty straightforward. Where Duterte will step down in a matter of months, Jinping will likely stay in power for the foreseeable future. As a leader, this makes Xi more potent, in a practical sense. Both Duterte and Jinping are known for their powerful display of force, though Xi Jinping has a much less transparent way of going about things. Corruption between the two countries has a very different standing, as China keeps things often under wraps, and Duterte's stances on crime were forceful and upfront against it. While Duterte's stances are more in line with the benefits held by the people, he has been voted out of the office and will likely not retain his position for much longer. In his beliefs, he has worked for anti-corruption campaigns to help shrink the gap between the people and the government. However, this has often made human rights play second fiddle to the campaign, causing widespread misery and suffering amongst his people. Up against Jinping in China, who has outlined a path for political leadership indefinitely. Only one can retain power, but it comes at a high cost to the freedoms of the people of China, the consistency of leadership, in this case, the detractor. Duterte earns 3 out of 5 strawberry scoops, matched as a tie against Jinping's identical score, 3 out of 5 strawberry scoops. Conclusion. When the scores are counted and added, we have a clear, divisive winner of the surprisingly straightforward fight between them. Jinping pulls in for a decisive victory against Duterte in nearly every category, except for politics, where they stood neck and neck. However, a single tie wasn't enough to pull Duterte from behind after 2 losses like that, with a hard KO in an uneven fight. While Duterte worked a bit more in line with the beliefs and needs of his people, China is a force to be reckoned with. Duterte was one of the world's most popular politicians and was remarkably transparent in his beliefs, which gave him an edge over the opaqueness of China's own. China has had its fair share of corruption over the years and has done much to maintain its current state. If you like this video, leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. That way you'll never miss a World Leader Cage Match! This has been Cage Match by Neapolitan, and we'll see you next time.